So here I am sitting at the breakfast table that Geoffrey Bawa and I would often sit at when he was around, laid with all his silver and probably devouring a bit of prawn curry and hoppers in the morning. But we're here today to possibly commemorate Geoffrey Bawa's 100th birth anniversary. We are at Lunuganga on the day that the first of the major events that were associated with the Geoffrey Bawa 100 program opens, which is the decorative arts exhibition. The idea of celebrating the decorative arts came from the fact that we have employed a new curator of collections, and she has discovered a whole lot of wonderful things that were in cupboards and put away for many, many years since the architect died about 16 years ago. So we have been able to bring things out, and for the first time it'll all be revealed to the public. And also for the first time the public will be allowed to view his personal spaces like his bedroom and the inner sanctum of Lunuganga, which was often not available to the public as they visited the garden over these many years.
The Lunuganga Trust was established during Geoffrey Bawa's lifetime. There were actually two trusts, the Geoffrey Bawa Trust and the Lunuganga Trust. The Geoffrey Bawa Trust is the public side of things, and they focus on education and exhibitions. The Lunuganga Trust manages and maintains the properties and the collections. Lunuganga is the garden that we're in. It was Geoffrey Bawa's passion throughout his life. He bought this property in 1948 when it was an abandoned rubber estate, and then literally moved mountains to create the slopes and views that he wanted. And that's where we are today.
So we are here at Lunuganga, where I think was a key location in which Geoffrey Bawa began to experiment with some of his architectural ideas. Geoffrey Bawa is very well known for being something called the father of tropical modernism. It's a word that has been sort of attached to his name for the last 20 years or so, as someone who invented a kind of modern architecture that somehow had relevance to our part of the world, particularly South Asia, and from here some of those ideas were transmitted to Southeast Asia, where most of the hotels that you now see and are celebrated, like the Aman resorts and all the various kinds of resorts that connect with the local culture and landscape, really have been inspired by much that was done by Bawa. And here in Bentota was perhaps where it all originated. When asked to design a tourist village in 1967 by the then government, who was for the first time taking tourism as a major part of our economic program, he built the Bentota Beach Hotel. The Bentota Beach Hotel is an iconic project which went on to influence so many people with its use of materials and its combination of incredible modern structure and wonderful local materials and techniques to make a building.
I have been in and out of this place for the last 20 years, but today it really looks special because of how they have this exhibition. They have brought so many things together. He is a very unique designer, and I think this place also shows the various, the qualities or the various aspects of him, and his personality.
A unique character of his architecture was essentially about how he managed to connect what was essentially an internal space of the home or a building to the outside. It was a clear understanding of the special status that Sri Lanka has of this extraordinary climate and wonderful environment that we all enjoy, and he made a huge effort to break those boundaries between inside and outside. And if you walk around some of the spaces that you see here in Lunuganga, you'll begin to see some of those things happening, where doors simply open and there is no sort of distinction between inside and outside. Sliding doors open to reveal floor finishes that go from the outside right into the inside, so that both visually and physically the insides and outsides are connected. Now, these ideas were taken onto almost all of his buildings, perhaps most beautifully sort of enunciated in a project like the Kandalama Hotel up in Damulla, and a lot of his other projects that you find in the hotel industry, and many of his houses. Even Parliament, in many ways, has those connections with the inside and outside.
So Bawa 100 is a program that we're launching today with this exhibition for the decorative arts to celebrate Jeffrey Bawa's 100th birthday, which falls on July 23rd, 2019. And so in order to kind of look at his legacy, reflect on all of the work that got done during his lifetime, but also to continue what he did, which was really nurturing the arts and architecture in Sri Lanka. The program will celebrate with new artists and some old collaborators for a year-long program. So starting this July and going on until July next year.
Jeffrey Bawa's influence, of course, although it's now almost 16 years after he died, has been tremendous. And you begin to see that an entire couple of generations of young architects who have started their practices after Bawa sort of passed away, or in fact 20 years after he got a stroke and stopped working, are still reflected in a lot of that work. The ideas of inside and outside, the effort to use locally available materials, the effort to use local skills and technologies of the people who work in the building industry is very visible in the current work. So you begin to see that his influence, if not directly quoted, I mean, people are not going to say, yes, I'm influenced by Bawa, but you begin to see those ideas that Bawa began with in the 1960s, 70s and 80s, right up to the end of his practice, are now beginning to be emulated. In a way, I would say that younger architects are thinking with his ideas and making it a part of the way they look at architecture and think about architecture.
I think what is fantastic about Mr. Bawa is, though a lot of people talk about a Bawa style, having worked with him, I don't know what that Bawa style is, because from project to project it changes, and what he is thinking about or what the context or the client is, the projects have changed. I think what is typical about his style is the way he goes around thinking about it, whether it is the site or what he would like to transform the space to be.
There's a lot of things that are very unique because he really practiced in a way that was specific to the place being Sri Lanka often, but he had projects abroad as well. But with every project, he really worked in the site and for the site. So each project is specific to the exact place that it's based in.
He actually designed those bits and pieces that he put together, whether they were a light fitting or a lock, everything he designed. So I think that is something I learned. He collaborated with lots of artists and designers, and today we saw a lot of their work, and it is very beautiful how they collaborated to bring the best of each other out.
I think he is endlessly inspiring. I think it's amazing to see how he managed to get such beautiful and thoughtful design done, even during really difficult times in the country's political history, when we had a closed economy, how he really learned to adapt to the context, the social context, the political context, to make meaningful work. I also find it really inspiring to think about the kind of collaborations that he did and how he managed to bring the best out with the many friends and proteges that he worked with.
If you look at Lunuganga, here we sit in this extremely beautiful garden. It's considered one of the great gardens of the 20th century in the world, not just in Sri Lanka, perhaps one of the best known modern gardens in Sri Lanka. It started life as a rubber plantation, and when Geoffrey Bawa bought it in 1947, about a year before Sri Lanka was formally made independent from the British Empire, it was a rubber plantation. And the house that you see behind me was the planter's bungalow. Over a period of 50 years, Geoffrey Bawa very, very slowly worked on it to create what we see today. Bawa was very, very good at not just simply designing his own garden, but working in a way that would take the landscape around him to become a part of the garden. And by opening up the great vistas, it also meant that there was a way in which the breezes around could be directed towards the house and perhaps begin to make the place much more comfortable.
Aesthetically, there's a lot of range. He had a very prolific career. He did private residences, he did hotels, he did a lot of public buildings, including the new parliament. So I think he was able to adapt for each project, but each project works perfectly for the site that it's in. I really love the designing. It's a problem-solving exercise. It's also both a conceptual cerebral practice as well as using your hands and making things. And I really like being able to do both of those. And I still think, I'm now working as the curator at the Lunuganga Trust, but it's still a role that requires both conceptualizing as well as making things.
I don't think there is anything called a Bawa style. It's hard for me. It's the materials he used, perhaps over and over again, that make people say it's a Bawa style. I think that is what I try to take home for myself as a designer, not to get so tight into a style, but to do different things.
There's a kind of living that his spaces allow. It allows for you to reflect because of the way he'll create a view, the way he'll let you get the kind of relaxation that a space like Lunuganga can provide. So yes, I think he definitely built for living in. His buildings are really meant to be lived in and are great for it.
I mean, often people think, architects, people sort of say, okay, the legendary Bawa and Chanadaswat, the protege and so on. And sometimes you have to live with this idea that ideas and expectations. But for me, architecture is often about the simple things. And that's something that I also learned from Jeffrey Bawa, that just to see a little bit of water trickling down a spout onto a pond and making a sound in the space that you're in, or the rustling of the leaves as we sit here talking and hearing that, listening to the wind and the birds, and to create an architecture that allows for that to happen is really what architecture is about for me. You can make the greatest buildings, the biggest, most fabulous structures, but in the end, as you experience architecture, it's really about feeling the rain, feeling the wind, and feeling the sounds that you will hear around you. That's the true experience of architecture. And if you can make a building that can bring some of these elements together, then I think you have been succeeded as an architect.